Hi. Who are you? Never mind. It's not important. What is important is a poem I've read recently by Edwin Arlington, Robin's son. It's called Reuben Bright. I can tell you're an animated person with a love of poetry, and so I'll recite it for you. Because he was a butcher, and thereby did earn an honest living and did right, I would not have you think that Reuben Bright was any more a brute than you or I, for when they told him that his wife must die, he stared at them, and shook with grief and fright, and cried like a great baby half that night, and made the women cry to see him cry. And after she was dead, and he had paid the singers and the sexton and the rest, he packed a lot of things that she had made, most mournfully away in an old chest of hers, and put some chopped up cedar boughs and with them, and tore down the slaughterhouse. Quite moving, wouldn't you say?
Not necessarily. Well, yes. It sounded moving, more or less, but at the same time I'm having trouble discerning just why it has moved me.
You and I are so alike. It's scary. I had the same response to this poem. Let's go through it, shall we?
I don't know. I just entered a relationship with a literature professor. I'm not sure I'm ready for this. Or, perhaps. Yes. Let's do it.
Right. Let's start with our initial response to the poem, which between us would appear to be one and the same. The poem is the story of a butcher whose wife dies. It is straightforward enough.
Yes. Reuben Bright loses his wife. He cries. He tears down the slaughterhouse in his grief.
But there is something about how Robinson stages the poem and tells us about Reuben Bright that imports a tremendous pathos.
Here is my theory. All that we know, at the start of the poem, about this character, is that he is a butcher. This is how Robinson presents him to us. And what does he do at poem's end? He destroys the slaughterhouse. Because we know so little about him, this eraser, of the only trait that Robinson mentions, is like an eraser of him altogether.
I think you've nailed it. But I think there's more. The speaker of the poem tells us at the opening what the story is meant to tell us. He intends to reassure us that Reuben Bright is not a brute, because of his response to the death of his wife.
But yes, I see where you're going. Reuben Bright's response to his wife's death is rather brutish. It is done in the name of grief. It is a thoroughly human response to death, one that we sympathize with immediately. But it is a drastic thing to do, no matter how one looks at it.
Exactly. It's like you read my mind. It really is just as if you crept into what is left of my mind and took the thoughts out of it. In other words, I agree. I also think the poem is so effective because of the abruptness of those last two lines. Listen to the first line, because he was a butcher and thereby. This is the language of reasoning. There is nothing visceral about the word thereby. And now the fifth line, for when they told him that his wife must die. It is a plain statement, in plain language.
Allow me to interrupt, for I know just where you are going with this. Contrast those two lines with the last two lines, part of which read that Reuben Bright put some chopped up cedar boughs in with them, and tore down the slaughterhouse. With phrases like chopped up and tore down, and the word slaughterhouse.
Which is always a little jarring.
Yes, the language has gotten rougher.
But still it's not all that rough. Robinson is not Walt Whitman all of a sudden. The tone of the poem is consistent, as is its speaker.
And, to look at the big picture, Robinson's poetry is, for lack of a more precise word, genteel. It is more Bryant than Whitman, more Ivy League than grassroots. Do you know what I mean?
Yes. I think many people, even poetry enthusiasts, find this off-putting. I could be wrong, but it's the best explanation I can come up with for why few people seem to read him, or talk about him, anyway.
Well.
Yes. What now? How about I buy you a drink?